Let's not beat around the bush. This might end up being one of the worst Tottenham-based shit sandwiches of our times. A devastating 4-1 loss at the Emirates on Sunday. Then tomorrow night, we go to the European champions, the Parc des Princes, against a side chock full of talent and some of their best players returning from injury. So what better time to invite a guest on for their debut, a man who listeners of the Golden Guest Talk Tottenham podcast will know from his time sitting in on the show, and a die-hard Spurs fan to boot. It's journalist Lee Wilmot. How are you, Lee?
Am I well? Probably not. But in myself, I'm okay. Being a Tottenham fan, absolutely not after, that shambles on Sunday.
Yep. I appreciate you coming on. Just before I get into it all, I do have to speak about my sponsor, okjersey.com. They sell the best current and retro shirts around at great prices. So do scan that QR code on the left of the screen. And if you're going to buy a shirt, use the code BARN in the coupon box for 8% off. Also, for those of you dare enough and willing enough to join me for a watch along for the PSG game tomorrow night, I will be on BigUp for that. Details of how to get there and join the community in the description box below. And if you join that community, you have a chance of winning a $25,000 prize. Okay, for once, the sponsorship announcement's far more exciting than talking about Tottenham Hotspur. Lee, actually, we'll get into Arsenal. I'm just going to try and start it to give some people some kind of hope with a little bit of transfer rumour. Reports again that Spurs are definitely interested in Samu Agahawa from FC Porto. Thomas Frank and the recruitment team, Johan Lange and, of course, Don Fabio Paratici, supposedly very interested in him. He has a release clause of £87 million, although he would go for a lot cheaper. So that's something to look forward to. Lee, is it fair to say we need someone better than Richarlison in the number 9 position at this stage?
Yes, and yes. Do you know what? I've always been a fan of Richarlison. I think the work rate he shows, and he is capable of scoring goals as he showed. Do you know what? That goal didn't belong in that match on Sunday. It would have been nicer if it was somewhere else, obviously.
But do you think he's sorry to interrupt, but do you think Richarlison's actually a number 9? Because I don't. And everyone that I've spoken to who I've got family and friends who support Everton told me from the start he's not a 9. He works off the left hand side. That's where he does his best work. And I even think the best stuff he's done for Spurs comes off the left. That brilliant assist for Sonny in the 2-1 win against Liverpool, and the goal he scored at Goodison Park into the top left hand corner. Yeah,
I agree with you. He's not the focal point, and that kind of what we saw on Sunday, the kind of hoofball, just didn't play to his strengths at all. He's going to win you fouls. He's going to kind of put himself about and be annoying and frustrating and a shithouse, as people like to call him. And he is capable of scoring extraordinary goals as well. But yeah, he's not a number 9, and the ball just didn't stick with him on Sunday. It won't stick with him. And playing that style was absolutely pointless. I just didn't understand it, really.
Yeah, and obviously you're a journalist, so you know the kind of inner workings of these things in terms of managers telling us the realities or not of injury issues. Dominic Solanke, we've been told for, what are we looking at now? 5-6 months that he's not far away. We were definitely told, I felt we were definitely told it was likely he'd be available after the international break, until just before the international break, when suddenly it was like Thomas Frank was asked, do you think we'll see him this year? And he was like, oh, I hope so. Have we got another Darren Anderson on our hands? What's going on?
Oh, I hope not. I love Darren Anderson, by the way.
What a player! What a player! But for those of us, those of you watching a bit or listening a bit younger than myself and Lee, probably, his nickname was Sick Note. He was a wonderful player, and he rarely got himself fit unless there was an international tournament on the horizon.
Always managed to do that, yeah. We're very good for that. Bit Christian Romero in that regard. We'll always manage to turn out for Argentina. Do you know what? I don't know what his injury record was like at Bournemouth. I think he was generally quite available for Bournemouth, and obviously was reasonably available for Spurs last year. I don't know what's happened. You can never be aware of the kind of minutiae of what's going on behind the scenes at a football club and little niggles that players have. But God, yeah, we do need him back. Or as you say, someone in the January transfer window. But who knows if Thomas Frank will last until the January transfer window at the minute, the way things are going.
Are Spurs unlucky with injuries, or does it just feel that way? I mean, obviously, Ange Postecoglou came out and threw a few of the medical department under the bus. Do you think just every football fan feels like their club is the most unlucky with injuries?
Yes, there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of you always go through the what if this had happened, what if that had happened. Every club does that, don't they, during a season? But there were times last year where players were looking elsewhere and looking for help on the injury front away from Tottenham. I think it was Christian Romero that came out and thanked the kind of Argentina medical staff, didn't he, towards the end of last season. And tellingly didn't thank the Spurs medical staff for kind of getting him back to it. So, there's conspiracy theories here and there, but there were occasions last year where the Spurs players were looking elsewhere to get help and to get back out onto the pitch.
That is not a good look, is it? Just keeping on the transfer talk, Matt Law in the Daily Telegraph said it is thought that Spurs' priority for the January window is to look at forward options. Thomas Frank wants more forward firepower. How do you feel about that, Lee? Or do you, like quite a lot of other people in the Spurs kind of online community, feel like a progressive passing central midfielder is where we should be looking first?
Can we not have both?
Well, that brings
Tottenham don't know.
Well, that brings me on to a later question, probably about the Lewis family. But my instinct is that I don't think things are going to change that much, but I would love to be proven wrong.
Do you know what? I don't like to be one of these people that kind of is knee-jerk reaction and wants to sack the manager because things aren't going well. We're 9th in the Premier League and we finished 17th last year. So there has been progression and we've picked up results this season. So it's not all doom and gloom. But I'm not sure with the way Thomas Frank plays football that another number 9 is going to solve all of our problems. Really, it's going to come down to how we decide to set up and how we decide to kind of play out if we're going to play out from the back or if we're going to focus on corners and long throw-ins, which I know are in vogue at the minute, but I don't quite understand it myself, really. I'd rather see my team kind of play football out and get on the ball and play possession-based attacking football. So, yeah, I don't think an out-and-out number 9 solves everything. I'd love to see Solanke back. I'd love to see a new signing. Obviously, like most fans would love to see signings in the January transfer window. But things have got to change, I think, in terms of the midfield and how we kind of build attacking intent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was Stefan Borson, the financial expert and Man City fan yesterday, saying on Twitter that he felt the perfect answer for both Spurs and Man City at the moment is for Tottenham to come back in for Savinho, which gives me the sense that maybe Savinho is not ripping up trees at Man City.
He's not playing very much at Manchester City, is he? But Guardiola appeared reluctant to let him go in the summer.
And then signed him on a new deal, which I was really surprised about.
Yeah, very strange. So yeah, that could be one that resurfaces in January. It depends how much money is going to be available. Obviously, there's the reports of the £100 million investment that ENIC have made into the club, which is 2 players in this day and age, if that sometimes. So it depends how much more there is available to Thomas Frank in January, and then what he's going to do with it. Yeah.
So Lee, I'm going to put your head on the block then, because we keep kind of delving into this, accidentally delving into this area of the changes in the higher ups. Daniel Levy's departure, obviously Viv and Charlie Lewis getting more involved, and Vinay Venkatesham. As a Spurs fan of many years, as I am, what's your instinct when it comes to what we're going to see in this January transfer window? All the communication has been good. I think we're all in agreement that Vinay's communication has been better, and the communication has included them all saying, we want more wins on the pitch, we want more trophies. So is it not right that we're going to have to see something different in January in terms of how they recruit?
Yes, I think so. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. The January transfer window is a difficult window to kind of bring top tier talent into, and the premiums go up in January because clubs don't want to lose their players in the January transfer window. So it's going to be a juggling act, and I know Spurs fans don't like to hear, we need to think about how much money we're going to spend and who we're going to spend it on and why we're going to do this and why we're going to do that. I think a lot of fans want to just go, let's go and chip £250 million and really go for it. I think that summer would probably be the better option in that case. I don't want to just throw away a season, but I think summer would be a better option for kind of splashing the cash rather than doing it in January. But you're absolutely right. It's something that the Spurs fans want to see. They've heard all the right things from the Lewis family and from Vinay Venkatesham. You're absolutely right. Vinay's kind of been a breath of fresh air in terms of actually communicating with the fan base, which we didn't see enough of under Daniel Levy, obviously. So things have changed there. Are things going to change in terms of money spent? Who knows? But my instinct would be not massively in January, and I wouldn't be against that, providing the money is spent in the summer transfer window.
And if January turns out to be a kind of similar January, I agree with everything you're saying, by the way, about it being much harder to get players through the door in January. But if it gets to, February the 1st, and we on, the last day of the window have brought in a Bundesliga wide forward on loan, for instance, would you envisage change for Tottenham, starting up some campaigns and some getting on the streets again? What do you think? Because it's still ENIC, don't forget. It is still ENIC. It
is still ENIC, yes. Do I know the Spurs fan base that well that they would go and do that? I don't know. We spent so long kind of being Levy out. Can you go and do it 6 months down the line just after one transfer window because we haven't signed a big name in January, we haven't spent the money in January? I think it would be a little bit harsh on those higher ups. I think they do kind of deserve to have a summer transfer window before we start laying into them again potentially. But who knows with football fandom? It could just be a case. And what you've said there is classic Spurs. February the 1st, someone comes in. That's a whole month wasted. It's a whole month without a signing if we do wait until February the 1st, which is the classic Tottenham way.
The Tottenham way. Tottenham, according to that Matt Law article, are keen to give Thomas Frank time to get things right. There are some rumours around the club. I love it when the reports come out. Rumours around the club when you've had a bad result. That Frank's numerous changes have contributed to inconsistency and the team's lack of attacking potency. For me, you can't have it both ways, which is under Ange, a lot of people in the Spurs community saying he doesn't rotate enough. And now Frank is rotating and seemingly getting blamed for that. Some players, apparently, according to Matt Law, are thought to be keen for Frank to focus more on the strengths of his own team rather than that of the opposition. Again, I would say that's a little bit of like the direct opposite from what people were complaining about with Ange, where it was all about the, that's who we are, mate, etc., etc. Where are you on the Thomas Frank train?
The Thomas the Frank engine, you mean train?
I think I may have accidentally stopped myself from saying that.
Yeah. So I've got on the one hand, he's steadied the ship and made us more solid at the back, and defensively, you can't argue with what he's done so far. We've got a better defensive record than we had against Ange. He's kind of played to the strengths, or his strengths as kind of where he's come from at Brentford, and making a team difficult to beat, which I think most of the Tottenham fan base wanted after seeing out. We finished 17th, for goodness sake, last year, with one of the worst defensive records ever. So everyone was clamoring for, we need to tighten up, we need to do this, we need to do that. So he's done that. It's been, 6 months? So while I'm not convinced by Thomas Frank, what he's done in 6 months in transforming the defence should be applauded. Now, what we need to see is a gradual, I think, move to a more attacking discipline while keeping that defensive solidity. I think he's focused so much on that defence that he's kind of left the attack to its own devices, sort of thing. Now we need to see a bit more of Thomas Frank coming out of his shell, trying to start to be a bit more attacking, and trying to keep that defensive solidity at the same time. And if he can do that, then I think we'll be a good side. It just remains to be seen whether he can do both at the same time.
Yeah, I think one of the issues with just concentrating on the defence, as you said, is that when you come to the big games against the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal, maybe to some degree the Aston Villa game as well, is if you're concentrating so much on defence, you just never get out. You never get out. And that was my biggest issue with that Arsenal game, and the same with the Chelsea game, is just an inability to get out and keep the ball. And if he's concentrating so much on set pieces, did we get any corners in that Arsenal game? I don't really, maybe one at a push. I know we had some free kicks in our own half that Vicario was taking. What are your kind of main takeaways from Arsenal? Can you find anything from it to think positively, or is it just something we need to basically forget and stop talking about?
I'd love to forget about it, but we can't really. It's the biggest game of the season for Tottenham fans, and it was an absolute shambles. The 10-15 minutes around Richarlison's goal, where we wanted to keep the ball and look to progress up the pitch with the ball on the floor, I think there's a little bit of optimism there from that. But what came before it, the setup. I knew we were in for a hard watch at the beginning. I told my my children that this is not going to be an easy watch, I don't think, today. And seeing the starting lineup with five, let's not again beat around the bush. It wasn't 3 at the back; it was 5 at the back. Having 5 at the back, and then the 2 destroyers in Palhinha and Bentancur, you're effectively got 8 men behind the ball there. So it was always going to be a hard watch. The issue I have is the lack of ambition and the lack of intent and desire to be on the ball when we had it. It was just like watching hoofball. Once we got the ball, it was Vicario will pump it upfield or Romero will pump it upfield, and then we'd lose it and it'd come straight back at us. Arsenal are a very good side and unfortunately look like they're going to go on and win the Premier League. I really hope Man City can do something, but it looks like Arsenal are going to go all the way this year because they are an excellent side, and it pains me to say it, but they're an excellent side. So I don't disagree with setting up defensively against them because we're not as good as them at the minute. But when we've got the ball, it's a North London derby, for goodness sake. We've got to show ambition. We've got to show fight. We've got to show intent. We've got to show a willingness to get on the ball and get at them when we have a chance. And there was absolutely none of that. And anyone, I've heard Chris Sutton from 5 Live's Monday Night Club last night saying, oh, it's one game, it's 90 minutes. Yes, Spurs weren't great, but it's one game. It's not, though.
No.
There was a 0.1 XG against Chelsea at home a couple of weeks ago. That was awful as well. Awful.
We also weren't much better against Wolves, if you remember that Wolves game, the Bournemouth game as well. Yeah,
it's happened too often so far this season. You can't just say it's one game. So, yeah, I wanted to see a bit more attacking intent against Arsenal because it was a derby. I thought Thomas would come out and do a bit more on the ball, and I didn't see it. So that's the only reason I'm a little bit kind of hesitant around him. Yes, I've been pleased with what he's done defensively, but I don't know whether he's got it in him to really bring the Tottenham way out in an attacking sense.
Yeah, and if he doesn't learn that, I think he's going to end up losing his job relatively quickly. One thing that I just want to bring up, because I agree with you in terms of, yes, we're playing a team who are far further ahead in their project than us. They're very good. So you want to line up, you can accept, I think, as Spurs fans, to line up defensively at the Emirates. But I think there's a little bit of naivety that reminded me of the time we went to the Emirates under Nuno, where both Nuno and Thomas Frank's idea of playing it quite defensive was to empty out the midfield. Whereas actually, I think against Arsenal on Sunday, when they had no Gyökeres, and obviously they had wide forwards, but I think a better way of playing defensively would be to have packed the midfield more, rather than just emptying it out and having Palhinha and Bentancur say, good luck, lads, when they were surrounded by 4, sometimes 5 Arsenal players whenever they got the ball anyway. So, of course, in that instance, as you said, Romero or Vicario is just going to bypass them, and then it's easy pickings for the centre halves to win it, and for their midfield of 4 or 5 players to win the second balls. That seemed naive to me.
I was very surprised Lucas Bergvall didn't get any minutes on the pitch on Sunday, because his energy and kind of effervescence and desire to show for the ball, I think would have been really useful in that second half, particularly. I don't think we've seen enough of Archie Gray in that midfield either. I'd be willing against PSG to throw both of those teenagers into the midfield and just say, go and show us what you can do, because let's face it, I think 99% of Spurs fans are probably expecting us to get beaten at the Parc des Princes tomorrow night. Yeah. So why not go and give those youngsters an opportunity to shine in the middle of the pitch, and at least they'll show a bit more energy and intensity than Palhinha and Bentancur had. And that's nothing. I absolutely love Rodrigo Bentancur. I'm one of his biggest fans, and I think Palhinha has been excellent from so far this season when he's done what we've wanted him to do. But yeah, the 2 youngsters, I'd love to see their energy in there.
Yeah, for me, that's an interesting point about the PSG game, because for me, I'm thinking about the Fulham game, where I'm like, well, what is the game we won at home this season? Oh, Burnley. And who played in central midfield that day? I think it was Gray and Bergvall both played in central midfield. Yeah. So that's one where I would be thinking for the Fulham game, maybe that's the time to put them in.
Yeah, maybe.
PSG, I mean, look, maybe, I actually don't disagree with you on that either. Like, what's the worst that can happen other than, like I said, it could be like a 6-0 and we've got a 4-1, 6-1, 6-0 sandwich. Just before I go on, Lee, just a quick video from our sponsors. Stay where you are. Get yourself to okjersey.com, where you can buy the best football shirts around, including this one I'm wearing now, and of course, the absolutely magnificent black Spurs away shirt. And as if that wasn't enough, If you go onto their website and like the look of one of the shirts there, choose your size, pick the Champions League badge for the sleeve as well if you're that way inclined, then go to checkout and type the code BARN into the coupon section. That's BARN as in short for Barnaby. And when you do, you'll get a whopping 8% off your purchase. Now, I'm no mathematician, but 8% means if you've spent, say, and let's face it, I'm being optimistic here, 100 quid, then you'd get £8 off, not to be sniffed at. Get yourself to okjersey.com to pick one up, or if you're too lazy to type in the website, just scan the QR code that's on the left of me throughout this video. Enjoy. Okay, Lee, I just thought it might be worth bringing a Jamie Carragher quote that he said after the game on Sunday about Thomas Frank, because it kind of plays into what we've been talking about. He said, the one negative so far under Thomas Frank is, can he go from being a pragmatic coach and trying to make it difficult for the opposition as he tried to do here? It's more about how they're going to score, how they're going to win a game. I can keep going back to the underlying numbers and the XG. It's very low. Even after watching the first 5 minutes of the game, you're thinking, what are Tottenham going to do here to hurt Arsenal? That is the problem with every manager making a jump to a top team. You've got to have more than just trying to stop the opposition. So that's very similar to what you were saying. And you're saying you're unsure of it. And I did say, he won't keep his job for that long. How much do you think Vinay Venkatesham and the people in charge at Spurs are trying to potentially look to the future and think, okay, if this isn't going to work out, where do we go next? And do you have any thoughts of where Spurs might or you would go next if Thomas Frank doesn't work out?
They've got an easy out, haven't they? Because he was a Daniel Levy appointment. So the fact that Levy's gone, if they wanted to get rid of Thomas Frank, they've got an easy out saying he was Levy's man, he was Levy's appointment. So let's move on. It's nothing.
Vinay was there though, wasn't he? He was there.
Yeah, he was there. You're right. You're absolutely right. But as we all know, Daniel Levy makes the decisions. He was the man to wield the axe in a number of times. So I think there's an easy out there if that's what the route they want to go down. You're right. The problem is where do you go? Where do you go next? I think I've seen the list of potential candidates if Thomas Frank was to be let go. And there's one very familiar name right at the very top of the list who would not come to the club until the summer, obviously, because he's got a very big job in guiding a team at the World Cup in the summer.
And probably the end of the summer as well, which would make next year's or next summer's recruitment very difficult for a start and pre-season.
Exactly that. I'm a big fan of Oliver Glasner at Palace. I think what he does there, but again, that's a step up from a kind of a smaller club, as it were. And the way he plays at Palace, you could say, is similar to how Thomas Frank played at Brentford in terms of soaking up pressure and getting the ball up to you get the ball up to Mateta and then had Elise beforehand and Eze around him. Let's not talk about Eze, shall we? No. I like Andoni Iraola. Again, we're talking about lots of managers that are going to make the step up from a smaller club to a bigger club, and how often has that actually worked? And I've seen kind of lots of social media videos and stuff, and this is why kind of the big clubs do tend to look regularly to Europe and to outside, because the track record of managers stepping up from a smaller club to a big club is not great.
Yeah. Well, Pochettino, I think, is pretty much the only one who has properly done it. And he was one of the few managers, who went in at a so-called smaller club and got them playing on the front foot, which is what was so attractive to him, because he did a brilliant job at Southampton. Then,
but we did give him time as well, because he was concerned about his job, wasn't he, at the first few months of his time?
And it was November time, so a similar time. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I think we were playing some slightly better football than we're seeing now.
I think so. I think you're right there.
Let's talk and let's go back into then tomorrow night and the PSG and do a brief little preview. They have had some injury issues, but it looks like Dembele is going to be back. Hakimi is still likely to be out, though, but they've just got class all the way down the middle. I spoke to somebody yesterday who was suggesting that maybe it won't be as physical a game. They're certainly more of a technical team, and that could maybe benefit Spurs. Are we clutching at straws?
Maybe. Yeah. Look, we've got to clutch at those straws. Look at the game we gave them in the Super Cup. They didn't have any preparation, obviously, which is probably why we got where we did and should have won that game, to be fair, and it would have been another trophy. But yeah, they have, you're right, they have quality all over the pitch. They are a very good side, and I think if you are going to clutch at straws, they've just been beaten in the Champions League admittedly by Bayern Munich. Yeah. So there's another straw we can clutch at.
Who are pretty good.
Yeah, they are pretty good, aren't they?
I think they'd won all 16 of their games at that point.
Yes, they had, yeah. I only noticed that they dropped points, I think, last week, just before the international break, wasn't it, against Union Berlin. And that's going to be an interesting one as well. Arsenal against Bayern Munich, because this is also on tomorrow night, isn't it? A massive night of Champions League football.
Just hoping Harry Kane goes and injures all of them.
That would be wonderful, yes. But then we're going back to Arsenal there, and something I was going to say earlier, but we kind of moved on. We've lost to an Arsenal side that were missing Martin Odegaard, they're missing Gabriel Magalhaes, they're missing Martinelli, missing Gyökeres up front, and they still went and absolutely smashed us.
Depressing. I mean, let's bring this towards the end on a depressing note. I mean, let me double the depression down and ask you for a prediction for tomorrow night's game at PSG.
Oh God, I don't like predicting Spurs to lose, but I can't see anything given what's happened in the last few weeks. We've missed out the game in between Chelsea and Arsenal with Manchester United, obviously, which was rescued somewhat and then ruined right at the very death. I don't think that was a great watch either, to be fair.
That was so Richarlison and so Tottenham, honestly. Part of me when Richarlison did that was like, never wear this shirt again. But anyway,
but yeah, coming off those three results, I can't see. I just want to see a performance. I don't want to see 10 men behind the ball against PSG. I want to show a bit of fight and a bit of ambition going forward. But probably I'm going for an ambitious 3-1 to PSG, I think.
Lee, you said you don't want to see 10 men behind the ball. Do you think you're going to see 10 men behind the ball?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Well, I predicted for the Arsenal game that we would lose 3-1. I was one low. Do you know what my big fear is? And the reason I called it a shit sandwich at the top is right now feels really similar to when Tim Sherwood was the caretaker manager. And do you remember we got stuffed a few times in quick succession? I think Liverpool and Chelsea both put 5 past us. And I have a big fear that it might be that. So I'm going to go for 4-0. And in a weird way, I think that might be hopeful.
Do you think that could be the end after if it's 4-0 after what's happened at Arsenal?
I think Fulham is a problem either way because you will have been to White Hart Lane and the Tottenham Stadium more than enough to know that the atmosphere for that game will be quiet, to say the least, at the start, and everybody kind of on tenterhooks, almost knowing what's coming, and that will affect the players and make the players jittery. And Fulham, who aren't in great form themselves, you can imagine, every club loves going to this lovely stadium. Oh, Molten Brown in the showers, loving it. And Marco Silva will get into them. And I just really fear that if we get stuffed tomorrow night, and in a way I'm saying this, Lee, because I'm hoping that I'm showing, as I've done many times, that I know nothing about football, and I jinx it and we put in a great performance tomorrow. But if we get stuffed tomorrow, I really fear for the game against Fulham on Saturday. Yeah,
well, our home record's awful, isn't it? And then Fulham just coming off the back of a win, aren't they? Who did they beat at the weekend? Was it Sunderland they beat at the weekend, I think?
Right. Right.
Yeah, so all roads lead to, well, we knew it was going to be a hard week anyway. Arsenal away, then PSG away, and then Fulham at home. I'm just hoping it's not 3 defeats in a row.
Yeah. Listen, Lee, thank you so much for coming on. Let my audience know where they can, if there's any stuff of yours you'd like them to see or where you're working now or anything like that.
Yeah, just I'm at GiveMeSport now. So senior editor at GiveMeSport, trying to do things over there, and I'm writing a piece on the changes Thomas Frank can make at the minute for the PSG game. So that'll be on GiveMeSport very soon. But that's where you can find me now. And yeah, any of these occasions you can find me on podcast appearances.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on, guys. It's Tuesday, the day before a very scary Wednesday, but try and enjoy the rest of your day. And like I said at the top, if you want to come and join me for a watch along for the game, join my community on BigUp. Details of how are in the description box below. Try and enjoy your day. Come on, you Spurs. Get yourself to okjersey.com, where you can buy the best football shirts around, including this one I'm wearing now, and of course the absolutely magnificent black Spurs away shirt. And as if that wasn't enough, if you go onto their website and like the look of one of the shirts there, choose your size, pick the Champions League badge for the sleeve as well if you're that way inclined, then go to checkout and type the code BARN into the coupon section. That's BARN as in short for Barnaby. And when you do, you'll get a whopping 8% off your purchase. Now, I'm no mathematician, but 8% means if you've spent, say, and let's face it, I'm being optimistic here, 100 quid, then you get £8 off, not to be sniffed at. Get yourself to okjersey.com to pick one up, or if you're too lazy to type in the website, just scan the QR code that's on the left of me throughout this video.